Hello everybody, CalviNNatioN here today with a brand new video. Today's video is going to be a little how-to or demonstration on removing your pocket clip from your Benchmade Model 51 Morpho. Benchmade Model 51 is one of Benchmade's newer bali-songs. It is the second latest, the latest being the Benchmade Model 53. And I believe it is just over a year old. I think, not too sure, don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure the 51 came out in November of 2009. I got my 51 back in March 2010, and since then I made a review, a couple tutorials, a couple other videos on it, and some people have noticed that I took my pocket clip off, and with that people requested for me to show a video on how to actually remove it successfully, and I have got a few requests since then, since I got it, and one request recently from BalisongZealot, a good friend on YouTube. Thanks for requesting that, man. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you enjoy it, especially BalisongZealot. And for all you guys who wanted to see this video, hope it's informative for you. Sorry everybody, I don't know when this is going to cut in, but in post-production or in editing, I realized I missed a major step in how to remove your pocket clip from your 51. And that step is how to initially, or for the first time, remove your pocket clip from your 51. Doing this for the first time is a little bit tricky and is a crucial step, because if you do it wrong, you could damage your knife, and if you damage it, really bad, you could render it useless until, you'd have to get new parts. But basically, why this is a little bit tricky is because these pins are attached to the pocket clip when you remove it for the first time. Once you unscrew those screws, you can individually take those screws out and place them aside. But then those pins are still going to be press fit right inside this pocket clip. And basically what press fit means is there's little ridges all on the ends of these pins here, along the whole diameter of the pin, right at the head there. And they're forced really hard into that pocket clip, and those ridges make a wedge and keep it in there with a great amount of force, and you're going to need a lot of pressure to remove those pins. And I did it a certain way. It's pretty rudimentary the way I did it, but you can use a vise and that'll work very well. I have some cardboard here just to resemble some wood, but I think you could probably use cardboard anyway if you wanted to put it in a vise. But I'll just show you the way I did it before. Like I said, it is pretty rudimentary, but basically what I did is I took this nail, took this piece of cardboard, placed it right along the shaft of the nail, just like that, put it right in between the two pins, make sure it's nice and equal there. So I put it right in between the two pins. Sorry, hold on. So that goes right in between the two pins, just like that. And then all I did was I stood it up on the pins and then just pushed down on the nails really hard until they popped. And I'm right in front of the camera here, and there we go. That's it. That's all I did, and that'll work fine. You just got to go for it. You don't hesitate. Just go for it. It shouldn't damage your pocket clip or your pins, but it'll feel like it, but it won't. So I'm just going to show you the other way now. Okay everybody, so for the second method we are going to be using the vise. So the materials you're going to need are a vise, obviously the pocket clip, as well as a piece of wood. For this demonstration I didn't feel like actually using a piece of wood and forming it all out and getting it ready, so I just used a piece of cardboard. So basically all the steps I do here, just apply it to a piece of wood and you should be fine. A very rigid piece of cardboard might work. You could try that, but definitely not this kind of cardboard. This is just cut out from a piece of box. But basically how you're going to go about doing this is you're going to take your pocket clip and you're going to basically measure out how far apart these are, and you are going to mark those out on a piece of wood or a very rigid piece of cardboard or whatever you decide to use, and then you're going to drill out your markings right through the back. You're going to end up placing the head or the heads of the pins in those holes, in the corresponding holes, and then you're just going to put it in your vise just like this. Make sure those pins are inside those holes just like that, and then you're just going to tighten your vise. And make sure those pins are straight. You want to have even pressure so they don't bend. And I'm not going to actually do this again because the cardboard won't allow it to happen. It'll probably eventually just damage mine, so I'm not going to go all the way through with it. But basically that's just what you're going to do. You're going to put, again, those pins just in those holes, and that, whatever you have in the back there, hopefully wood, is going to be a very sturdy backrest, which is not going to give in and not damage the pocket clip. And then with the force of the vise closing in on those pins, it's going to force the pins through the holes you made, but keep the pocket clip straight. So you're just going to keep putting pressure on that until it pops right through those holes, just like that. And I'm, again, not going to do it. Those will pop through the holes and you're set. That's definitely a more safer way to do it. They won't fly out just like they won't fly out like last time when I used the nail technique, and it's a good method, but you're gonna have to do a little bit more work in getting a little piece of wood ready, so definitely keep that in mind. Both ways are definitely ways to to think about, and yeah, we'll get on with the video. Thanks, guys. So let's start off here by just showing what you're gonna need. Right here I have some medium strength blue 242 thread locker. We're going to need that to finish off with the tightening of the screws. I have a 30-piece screwdriver bit set with a whole bunch of small Torx bits. This is a great little set. It includes a little magnifying glass, some pliers, some tweezers, and the screwdriver along with 30 bits. It comes with a lot of very small Torx bits, which is definitely what you want. Especially with knives. So for all you knife lovers out there, lots of nice little Torx sets along with all those other bits, but you're going to find Torx sets in all your knives out there pretty much nowadays, so that's going to do you good. I also have here 150 grain or grit sandpaper. We're going to use that for grinding down the pins. And I have this hex set screwdriver kit, just with a very small hex screwdriver bit deployed just for a center punch. That's not actually going to be used to be unscrewing anything, just again a center punch. We also have the 51 here as well as the pocket clip, and I also have the lid for this, which I'm going to be putting the screws and pins in just before I even get started. Make sure you guys do the same. Make sure you have a little dish or something along that lines just so you can put your pieces in there so you don't lose them on the floor or something. That always seems to happen, and you don't want that happening. Alright guys, so let's get started. First off, I just want to give you just kind of a rundown on how this is actually done. I'm just going to bring this a little bit closer to the camera, the 51, just to show you kind of, what it's all about. Just before we get started, on the back here, yes, that pin is protruding a lot, and that is not damaged or broken or anything, just so you guys don't ask questions about that. I have that loose just for demonstrational purposes. So basically the whole premise of removing your pocket clip for this knife is you're going to have to take the screws out, the pins out, and then you're going to have to remove that pocket clip. But the problem with that is it's a little bit more difficult and precise than that. You actually are ended up with a gap between the G10 and the titanium liners once that pocket clip is removed, because the way Benchmade designed this is that it's a pin and screw construction, so the pins are lengthened enough so that when the screws are tight up against the pocket clip, the pins are long enough that the screws will go all the way through the pocket clip as well as go inside that pin. So once you take the pocket clip off, there's so much extra space that that pocket clip isn't using up anymore. So those screws, so that pin protrudes so much farther up. So then when you screw the screws all the way into those pins, those screws, the heads of the screws are not actually against the G10. So that leaves a gap between the G10 and the titanium liner. And like I said, I kept this one really loose just for demonstrational purposes, because this is kind of what you're going to see once you remove that pocket clip. Right about there, is what it's going to be. Yeah, right about there is what it's going to be once you remove that pocket clip and tighten the screws all the way into the pins. You're going to have a lot of excess room above the G10, and that's just about what you're going to see there. So just so you guys know, just a heads up there. And then obviously this one's all the way tightened with the modifications already done. It's already grinded, so that's already tight. But if those were both the same, the G10 would be coming off. They'd both be about that high right there on the left screw. So I'm going to unscrew these just a little bit more and just kind of lead you through the steps. Okay guys, so before I unscrew those screws all the way, I just want to show or kind of mimic what it's going to look like after you take the pocket clip off, but before you've grinded down those pins. So before, if you guys remember, that screw there on the right was all the way in the handle, and now you can see the left one is. But they're both loose, and they're both kind of at that point, the same point in which it would be right after you take off the pocket clip. So if we push that up a little, that's just about where the screws are going to be. You want them to be, again, right embedded into that G10. But this is what's going to happen right after you remove that pocket clip. You're going to get that right there. You can see that G10 popping right off the titanium liners. And I think it's actually a little bit more. I didn't unscrew these quite far enough, but you're going to get even a little bit more play than that right when you take off the pocket clip. And you definitely don't want that. And we're going to avoid this by grinding down those pins. So we're going to unscrew those just a little bit further, and we'll get back to you. Okay, so we're a lot farther along now. As we can see, the screws are completely out and just the bare pins are showing. If we actually get a little bit closer, you might be able to make out the grind lines of where I sanded them down. But you can definitely tell that they're lower. And for all you guys who have actually done this or taken off their pocket clips, or even for all you guys who are following along with me right now who are doing it as well, you can tell that yours were or are a lot smaller or shorter than mine. Or a lot longer than mine, sorry. And yeah, you're going to have to grind those down on the sandpaper. And key is here, make sure you don't take off too much or too little. Too much is a lot more worse than too little. Obviously, if you take too little off, you can just try again, take a little bit more off until it's right. But make sure, really make sure you don't take too much off, because you might have your screws not being able to reach the pins. And in that case, you can't even tighten this at all. Your G10 is going to be flopping all over the place. Or you might just have enough to fit in, but it might just pop out on you. And you definitely don't want that. You're going to go from just a little play between the G10 till that G10 is pretty much off the liner. And you don't want that. So from this point, we are going to take a thin center punch like I have here, my hex set. And we're just going to poke those pins out. Okay, so again, I have just this little hex screwdriver here, and what you're going to do is you're going to put mine are kind of loose, so I don't know how hard it's going to be. They're press fit pins, so they're going to be tough the first time, but I've fiddled around with this so many times, they're pretty loose now. But I like to just stick that in, stick your finger or your thumb or something on the back of the pin, and then just push really hard until it pops out. And then you're keeping that finger on there just so they don't fly out of the handle. And then do that the same there for both. Actually, we'll push that a little more for both pins, and that should be good. And another thing to just keep in mind is make sure you keep all the moving parts and all the mechanisms in the bottom of that bite handle there. You don't want to remove those because there actually is a ton of small little pieces. It's not too hard to put back together, but it'll take a little bit of time and effort. But the main point of that is actually to keep the liners and the G10 properly spaced apart, so you can judge the distance where you want those pins to be. Because if you take the spacers right out and you tighten those pins with the screws, it's actually going to pull those handles closer together, and you're not going to get an accurate measurement of space to where you want those pins to be grinded down to. So you're going to want to keep that spacer in so you know how much you have to grind off your pins. But again, you can also use my example there where I showed you how much you want to take off. But definitely keep those things in there, not only because you'll lose them, but it's also good to, you know, it's accurate. So now that we have those pins out, you're going to basically just grind them down on your sandpaper, and you can see right through that handle. The latch will fall out very easy on you, so again, make sure you try to keep those in there as best as you can. And basically what we're going to do with those pins is we're just going to take them in your hand, or if you have some you know, some pliers to grip them with, anything you're just basically going to hold them with. You're going to hold it nice and tight grip. You're just going to go onto your sandpaper here, and like I said, I'm using 150 grit sandpaper. I think you could go a little bit lower. 150 is pretty fine for this kind of thing. You could probably go to 120. I don't think I'd go any lower than 120. So keep it between 120 and 150. But basically, again, you're going to just take that pin right there, put it flat on that sandpaper, and you're just going to go back and forth. And then again, you're just going to keep putting it inside those handles, just in and out of those handles, just to make sure you're taking enough off. And then you're going to want to test that every once in a while again, just to make sure you're not taking too much off. So we just put that back in the corresponding hole. And if you've kept those parts in, it should fit in nice and smoothly. Sometimes those will move around on you, and it will be a real pain to try to align those pieces back up. Yeah, it's already kind of happening. And you're just going to put it in. And what I like to do, since they're press fit, I just like to put it against the desk or something and then just push. You should hear it just kind of click in. Mine are, again, very loose, so they don't really do that anymore. But then that's how it's going to be, and that again is kind of where you want it. That's how much I took off again, and that is going to be right tight to the G10, and you're going to remove all that play between the G10 and the titanium. And that's all you got to do, guys. And then simply put your other grinded pin back in. Obviously make sure you took enough off before you put your screws back in. Make sure you press that back into the handle nice and tight, and you're going to simply just put your screws back in, and that's it. You got it. Oh, and I totally forgot, Loctite. You're going to need to Loctite those. Make sure you do. Those will actually loosen up on you without you even really noticing. They do loosen up very, very easy, and Benchmade 51s do have a problem with that. A lot of people talk about that, and it is kind of annoying. And make sure, if you guys haven't even Loctited your main pivot pins, you've got to do that. It's very necessary, or else your 51 is going to be very, very loose. But I'm not going to give you a huge tutorial on how to Loctite. But basically, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put Loctite on about half of the thread, not the whole thing. People often do the whole thing, but all you need is half. And actually, if you do the whole thing, you could run into over tightening. It'll spill over, and you could lock up your stuff permanently. Well, not necessarily permanently, but it could be a real pain to get it unlocked. These are small screws, and I can't really get it on the end of that screwdriver, so I'm just going to try to do it by hand here. But what I like to do for this, and it probably won't really focus, actually we'll try to let it focus a little. Okay, there. What I like to do is I like to just squeeze it a little, just so there's a drop at the end. Don't actually let a drop fall onto it. Just kind of let it kind of squeeze out of that tube, and then just dab it right on. And then make sure you got some paper towels with you, just to get some excess. But that's what I got there. About half of them Loctited. And then you're just going to screw it like you normally would. Just put it back in, tighten it as tight as you can. Well, not as tight as you can, but nice and snug. And that should be a permanent hold on you. And if you really need to get it out, it is very possible to get it out. That's what it is, medium strength. Don't use the red stuff, that is permanent. You cannot remove it once it's done. So get that blue 242, and yeah. But then yeah, just screw it back in. Nice and snug. Just like that. Both of them Loctited. And you got a nice, tight Benchmade Model 51 or 32 without the pocket clip. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Any questions or comments, please leave them below. I will get back to you as soon as possible. I know I always leave stuff out. I'm not the best speaker, especially on cameras, and you know, I definitely usually leave something out, and if I did, please feel free to ask, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks a lot, guys, for watching. I really appreciate it, and stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching again. Take care. Bye-bye.